And hello everybody, welcome to Buffs and Nerfs. I'm Sam Hall, and over there somewhere to the east of me is my co-host Andrew Lanza. Andrew, how are you today?
East End represent. What up?
Oh man, are we already beefing? I'm West End, West Side is categorically the best side. I mean, it's right there in the rhyme, so. But I guess we should leave this beef for another podcast or when we are able to hang out in person, and then we'll fight each other. It'll be great.
Oh yeah, we'll knife fight, but like West Side Story style, where we're kind of like, it's like a dance knife fight.
Yeah, we're constantly
like
snapping our fingers, like snap it to snap. When you're a jet all the way.
Oh, I think you're a shark, bro. Like, honestly.
Well, I mean, truth is, I was a jet for a while, but then they kicked me out because of my controversial views. And now I had to be a shark.
Your pro-shark agenda?
My pro-shark agenda. Yes, you know what? I'm sorry. I believe sharks shouldn't be killed. I believe that they are perhaps the apex predator of the oceans outside of, like, giant squids and krakens?
I don't know. They got some delicious fins for soup. Ooh. I'm kidding. I'm a vegetarian. For
not
the record.
Cool,
that
dude.
Was a joke.
I mean, I love eating meat. You know what I mean? And no, I would never eat shark meat. Except, okay, are we allowed to do sides in this that have nothing to do with video games?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Jump ahead about 2 minutes since it's already boring the shit out of you. So, when I was 10, a friend of the family's got married in Trinidad and Tobago. So we went down there for 2 weeks for the wedding. It was a lovely wedding. It was really great to be down in the Caribbean there. But we spent sort of the middle weekend on a place called Pigeon Point Beach on Tobago, I believe. And I was 10. This was the 80s, so what I'm about to tell you was totally cool. And they had this hut, just like the small little shack, really, that had just these guys making shark burgers. And literally behind it was a carcass of a shark that they would take, cut off a bit of the meat, do the grinding right there, fry it up, and give you this shark burger. And to this day, over 30 years later, I'm thinking about it right now. It was like a salty burger, and like just my mouth starts watering a little bit. It was delicious, but don't eat shark. But oh man,
well, I mean that's different though. They're like, I'm sure those people were like using like most, if not all, of the shark. They're not just like,
oh no, they would cut it off a piece, make you a burger, and throw the rest away. They had like a big pile of sharks behind them. I was like,
just one burger.
It was
per
the
shark.
80s, man. It was Reagan's America. It was the Russians. We could get nuked any day, so let's just kill sharks. That was the attitude. And with that note, we're now going to talk about video games. But, as is our tradition, instead of just jumping right into our subject for today, which will be mentioned momentarily, let's talk some game news. Andrew, any big news? Have you done any stock investing lately? Anything like that?
To the moon! Yeah, no, I don't. Clearly the big news is the Reddit / Robinhood, inflating the price of shares for GameStop and AMC.
Is it inflating? I think inflating means you are making it artificially more valuable, but they're actually like...
It is truly, yeah, that's why...
They are purchasing the stock, so their mass purchasing of it does make, and holding on to it, does make it legitimately more valuable. It's not like...
Okay.
I don't know. You might be right. That might be the right term.
So
I do
listen,
read The Economist, though.
So listen, I generally, like, I've seen the movie The Big Short, and, like, I have a vague understanding of what went down in the financial
have you also
crisis.
Seen Wolf of Wall Street?
Wolf of Wall Street, all that, yeah.
You're
so
a financial
it's like,
genius, I get it.
So, like, I feel like you can explain this better. Like, as you said, you read The Economist. You are an avid listener?
Listener, yeah. Like, I do when I listen to it while I'm wearing my exercises. I learn about, the middle right British view on the world.
So yeah, so I feel like you are slightly more equipped to explain the whole situation, maybe to somebody who's listening who's not as familiar.
Okay. So what shorting is basically you borrow stock from somebody and you go to a third party and you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to sell this to you now at $10, but you're pretty sure the stock's going to go down, so that you buy it in the future at $2 and you make $8 profit per stock. And what happens is the original person who held on to the stock gets usually 4% of the sale, and also if the stock is accruing any dividends, they get that paid to them. They're literally just loaning it to you. You don't actually own the stock. But what happens is, if the stock goes up, you still have to go back to that original person, and let's say you borrowed 100 units off him, you have to give him 100 units. So what's going on here is that Wall Street Bets jacked the price up really high on GameStop stock because a lot of people were betting it to basically go under because they thought it was a failing brick and mortar operation. And it actually turns out, as a sidebar, it's not doing as bad as people think. Like, ignoring this whole situation, GameStop is actually doing okay. So what happened is a bunch of Wall Street bets went hard into the stock and raised its price gigantically, and all these people who shorted it are like, we thought this was going to be $2, and now it's like $300. We still have to get the stock and give it to the people that we borrowed it from. Long story short, hedge funds are losing. Like, I think one lost like $20 billion. This is crazy. This is crazy, but I love it.
So good. Like, when I see that, I'm just like,
yeah,
like you've been using the fucking stock market like ever since, like, you know, deregulation went down. Like they've essentially just like these, you know, hedge funds and stuff like that, and these traders have just been essentially using the stock market as their own like personal fucking cash machine. Essentially, they're just like manipulate the market, like you said, by creating these shorts and then creating false demand or a false, you know, inflation or degradation, I guess, in the price of stocks, and then use that to their advantage. And then it's just like doing it at a mass level, where now these people on Reddit have the same access to, you know, because back in the day you needed to have like, I don't know what it's called, but you needed that crazy machine. Well, you needed like a crazy machine to like access the stock market and stuff like that. And it was a very like not secretive, but like you had to like,
it was an exclusive club.
Exclusive. Yeah, you needed like certain ins, you needed certain software, blah blah blah. But now this app, like, you know, there's apps now like kind of, you know, the one that's kind of gotten a little more prolific is Robinhood now, and you know, there's websites and different apps and that sort of thing that has put this into the hands essentially and literally of every man. And yeah, and then you have websites like Reddit that people can use to organize and do these mass buys of, you know, essentially quote meme stocks that are, you know, AMC, Dogecoin. I saw was like going up like crazy, even though it's still worth like not a lot, but it went up like 300% or something like that.
To a whole
obviously no, it's like 0.03 still. Like no joke. Yeah, and then obviously GameStop as well. Like that's obviously the big one. But yeah, and then now there's like calling for like, now all the rich people are like, oh, this needs to be regulated, nah. And like I just like love these video compilations of just like rich old white dudes just like crying about how these people are essentially doing the same thing that they have been doing for the last like 2 decades.
Well, how do you feel about the latest development where Robinhood actually suspended trading of GameStop stock on its platform, and a lot of what these investors
and the other ones too, like
the other ones did as well. Yeah.
AMC, like all the there's like a handful of like ones that everybody, it's like AMC, GameStop, and I can't remember. There's a handful of other ones as well.
Yeah, this is crazy. Like, I mean, it's the whole everything up till then was just like, okay, well, you know what, they're not doing anything wrong. But the moment that Robinhood said, oh, you can't trade this stock anymore on our thing, that's bullshit. You know what? Like, you have this business model where it's access to the stock market, and you shouldn't, at least, I mean, I guess you can obviously can, but you shouldn't be able to suddenly say arbitrarily, no, we got to stop this because this is causing us problems. And the only people it's hurting are hedge fund managers. And I think there's something about Robinhood, while it does allow access to the everyman to money stuff. Yeah, that's what it's called, money stuff. The rich people's money stuff.
Savvy business.
They're savvy business, yes. God, such a great name. I wonder who came up with that. Oh, that's right. And basically, I think Robinhood is actually owned partially by a larger trading company or something like that. So they're not quite the, I guess the folk hero that they want to live up to with their name. So long story short, GME stocks have gone through the roof. GME being the trading name for number, call sign, I don't know. But the trading symbol, gesture.
Acronym? I don't know.
Acronym? Yeah, acronym sounds about right. No, wait, that wouldn't be. Anyways, long story short, that stock's gone through the roof. So if you have some and you're making bank off it, congratulations. And if you're a hedge fund owner, broker, or whatever, I'm sorry for the loss of money, but you know,
yeah. Also,
it's a gamble,
like,
man.
You brought up that, you know, Robinhood has like halted the trade of these these quote meme stocks. The thing is Robinhood is owned, like the app is owned by some, I forgot what hedge fund it is, but it's owned, and like it was like created by some hedge fund. So essentially, like I mean, it's still shady, but if you realize that it's owned by the hedge fund, it's essentially like they fucking bit their own ass on that one. You know what I mean? So it's like they're losing money on all these trades, but it's like they facilitated it. So anyway, I mean, them halting it is like, again, like that's their own version of fucking market manipulation. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just so fucking, like, as I said, man, just seeing these people just like cry on fucking CNN and shit, like MSNBC and whatever, and just like crying about like what the free market is doing. It's just like, wow, like this is what you wanted. You so like this you sowed your own seeds. Like this is the bed you made. That time to fucking lie in it.
Yeah, decades of basically screwing over poor people and some, well, and by poor people I mean even like middle class people by their standards. Suddenly striking back, and they're like, no, it shouldn't be allowed. Pff, cry me a river into your yacht on your pool made of bourbon, I'm assuming.
Ooh, pool yachts. Pool
Pool
yachts.
yachts.
Very
Oh yeah,
fancy,
no, if I was
very
rich, that's what
fancy.
I would do. And with that almost quarter of an hour talking about video games in the most tangential way, we're now going to talk about video games. So the subject of today's episode is things, or as I like to call them, trends and tropes in video games that gotta go. These are the things that video games have been doing for a while, and it's not fun. They've either worn out their welcome, or there's something that just shouldn't have been done in the first place. Maybe there's something that references back to a more dated time, like an earlier era of video games, or sometimes it's just something a particular franchise is doing. Long story short, video games, we love them, but we also know, like all of you listeners probably know, they have these issues. And to start us off is the first one from my co-host, Andrew W. Lancer.
Well, thank you, sir.
No, you're welcome.
Also, might I add, it was a good segue. You just kind of fucking snuck in there. That was good. You wrangled it.
It got away from
enjoyed
me
it.
a little bit, I'll admit, but
Hey,
practice
no,
makes perfect.
we got back to it. Yeah. So I think probably my least favorite trope of all time in a video game would have to be the escort mechanic. That is just anytime I play a game and there is a section where you have to escort an NPC, it just fucking the game grinds to a halt. It's almost like like an honorable mention. I was thinking of including it, but like included stealth mechanics are also, and if you take both those things, like a forced stealth mechanic, and like that a game doesn't necessarily utilize for the most part. Like I mentioned in another podcast, Spider-Man, where there's a few levels of forced stealth mechanics. So if you take a forced stealth mechanic with a forced NPC where you have to like escort or like essentially handhold an NPC in a game, it just fucking, I just hate it so much. And like the NPC AI is always just so bad. And there's like some games where there's like kind of like a stay here function and like a follow me function, and it just never fucking works. For number one worst ever implementation of an escort mechanic would for me have to be, I don't know if you've ever played it, but there was the Phantom Menace game for, I played it for PS1. I'm sure it came
No,
out for other
I
systems.
don't think I've ever played it. I might have played like Lego Star Wars. This is probably as close as I got.
No, this was like the official tie-in game that came
No,
out in
I
like
didn't play it.
99 or whatever, like 2000, like with the movie. And like, first of all, this game is just so fucking bad. Like it's like the epitome of like movie tie-in game.
That's weird considering the movie it's coming from.
Hey man, I enjoy Phantom Menace. I stick by Phantom Menace to this day. I enjoy it. Is it the best movie of all time? Hell no. It is. It's got tons of flaws. I enjoy Phantom Menace.
To each their own.
This is my cross to die on. But anyway, so there's a mission or missions, I believe, in the game, but one specifically that I remember playing where, and this was like back in the day too. So I was like, I don't know, grade 9 or something like that, grade 8. And I'm playing Star Wars Phantom Menace, and there's this one level, the level where you're kind of like escaping Naboo with Queen Amidala, and there, like, you have to escort Queen Amidala through Naboo as you're escaping, and this game is already bad, and then the game this bad game implements bad stealth mechanics with bad AI and bad AI for your escort NPC, who is Amidala, and it just creates this whirlwind of just garbage. And you have like these tanks that patrol up and down, and if she gets shot once by this tank, it will just one shot her. And like there's like as I said, there's that like stay and follow mechanic where it's like one button, like I don't know, triangle stay and square is whatever. I don't remember what it was, but they just literally just didn't work, and she would just do whatever she wanted. I don't even know how. I eventually just through like luck and like brute forcing it, like the AI just randomly did its own thing and like beat it after like so many tries. I don't even know why I tried that long, but I finally did beat it.
Did you actually beat the game as well, or?
I remember I got to the final fight where you fight Darth Maul. And just with like I don't know, I just couldn't be asked. I remember you have to like traverse these like fucking bridges and like just like keep getting up to like where Darth Maul's fighting Qui-Gon. And I was just like I hate this game. I'm not playing it anymore. Again, I was like grade 9. So and like back in the day too, it's like if you get a new game, it's not like these days where you have your own money and you're like you got like a bunch of different games that you haven't played on the go. It's like you have that one game that you bought, like it's like Phantom Menace. I think I bought it like used from fucking Blockbuster or something. And yeah, so it's like that's all like that was the new game. So I just played the shit out of it for a while, and then finally, as I said, I was just like, and it had like the most piss poor platforming, like everything that you could stick into that game that was bad. It was just all around terrible.
I first of all, I don't ever want to play this game. I don't think I ever would in the first place, but you made it sound terrible. But I want to add a slight thing that I 100% agree on escort missions. What also is annoying, and this isn't nearly as bad as escort missions, but it's kind of a similar thing, are follow missions where you have to keep pace with an NPC, but you invariably run faster than them. So you're just constantly like, oh, okay.
You walk slower than them, but you run faster than them.
So you're like, instead of just like walking with the person, you're like running ahead. Can you imagine if you were having a conversation with someone on the street, in the future when we're able to actually talk to each other on the street?
Run walk.
And he runs past you, then he like sort of stops, waits for you to pass, and keeps doing that. It's nuttiness.
Yeah. You're 100% right.
I think that's part of escort missions in a very abstract way, but
or even you have escort missions where the same thing is. Where I was actually going to bring that up, but totally forgot till you did. Where it's the same thing, where you're escorting somebody, but they, as I said, they walk faster than you walk, but slower than you run, and you have to do this as you said, this like awkward like run walk, and you just look like a flipping knob. Yeah. But I just wanted to shout out one game.
Okay.
Now, so see, this is a game like there's Ico, who
I think it's Ico, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard both. I'm sure one of them is right.
We'll find a GIF about it.
Yes, but yeah, so that game is essentially one long escort mission. That it actually like works like because the game is based around it, like, and I don't know, you have, I guess there's more of like a connection to the character you're escorting, so you do kind of like have this like want to protect her. Like the AI at times was janky AF for that, but there were like for the most part I feel like it worked. Not like the so they also made Shadow Colossus, and then what was the other, the Last Guardian.
I forgot about that.
Last Guardian is essentially like a reverse escort mission. It's like the dog, there's like a giant dog that like escorts you, but you control the dog that is escorting you. So it's almost like a reverse escort mission, I feel like. I never played it, but I have seen a lot of, because like that game was in development hell for like 15 years or something like that. Like that game was in development for like a whole cycle. And
it came out though, right?
Yeah, it came out for PS4, but it was originally supposed to come out for PS3 and just like skip the PS3. But yeah, so that game, I've seen videos on it, and like that game seems like it had really bad AI just from like watching YouTube videos and shit on it. Again, I haven't actually played it, so maybe that's just a compilation of poor AI moments. But yeah, throwing it back to you, what would your first choice for tropes that gotta go?
All right, my first TNT choice, as I call it. See it? TNT? Dynamite. Is a little thing that, I mean, I don't know if it's a specific name for this, but my question is, when this happens to me, is, why can't I kill this guy? What it is in a lot of video games, you play as a character that is pretty easy with killing. Like, we're talking the Grand Theft Autos, your Assassin's Creeds, your, I don't know, your Destinies, but that's a different story. But basically, when a game gives you a character, or introduces some character to your, like, story, and your just instant reaction is like, this guy is going to be trouble, or this guy is trouble, I should just kill this guy and would solve my problems, and you can't. I know it sounds crazy to be saying, why can't I kill? I sound like a psychopath. But there's, I'm going to give you two quick examples and then the worst example of all time. Now, two quick examples are from relatively recent games. One is from Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You have a crew of Vikings who you raid with all the time. You're jumping off the ship attacking them. And there's one in the crew called Dag, whose sole existence is to go like, your brother's better. You know, like he's the real guy in charge. You shouldn't be doing what you're doing, Eivor. You know, like, if your brother was here, it'd be fine. And you're just like, the whole time I'm like, I'm a Viking. This guy talked back to me. I mean, Vikings are known for like, if you step on their toe, they're like, well, you're gonna get a blood eagle. And instead, this, like, you have to just tolerate him the whole time. I haven't finished the game. Maybe he's got some plot point in the future, but he is definitely a character where I'm like, this guy is gonna be trouble. Why can't I kill him? Now, a lot of people probably listening haven't played Assassin's Creed, so I'm gonna go back almost 2 years, I think, to a much more popular game that a lot of people played. Red Dead Redemption 2, and the character I am talking about, of course, is Micah. Yep, you knew it. You knew it. I mean, I know you finished the game, and I haven't finished the game, but just through existing in a consuming video game media, I have learned he ain't to be trusted. But I remember the first time playing that game before I had any clue about what was coming on down the line. Like, I played it like I bought it day one. One of the earliest missions, you rescue this guy, and he's in a jail in a town. And he's all like, come on, Arthur, you gotta get me out of here. And you're like, well, I don't know. And I'm just sitting there going like, okay, I'd leave this guy. This guy's gonna be trouble. Like,
but then I understand. But if you can do that, the entire game, they would have to change the entire game. They would have to make essentially two completely different games if that were the case.
Well, what I think is like, yes, okay, maybe they would have to make a choice. But what I'm saying is like they should have designed around that, like, or just omitted the character entirely. Basically, what it is these writers and creators of games create an need you to have an antagonist. But since a video game is not a film where you control every moment, and there's also a lot of time where you're in between plot beats, whether you're going around clearing points on a map or returning to a base and checking, like, video games aren't a consistently straight narrative, regardless of what. Maybe some games like those. What's that coming?
Like more like things like that are like very linear. Will have like curated moments.
Yeah, exactly.
But those games are like more like an open world like sandbox.
Yeah, exactly. So like, and with Red Dead Redemption 2, like you might jump to the next mission, or you might spend 5 hours and go to the next mission. So they can't really do that. But what I find is like characters like that exist solely to annoy and betray the main character, and it's just kind of like, I'm not saying you can't have an antagonistic character that comes back and forth, but
just don't telegraph it from like the first mission. Like, it's like, 100%. Okay, that guy's gonna be bad.
And well, you played the game. He does betray. Sorry, spoilers for Red Dead Redemption 2. He does betray you, right? And I think he betrayed you before the story even starts, right?
Yeah, he's essentially like the final boss.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And it's just, and not only that. Okay, so in the story, Arthur is relatively, at least when I play him, he's a relatively honorable guy. I mean, I know some people like to go crazy with him. I generally play him as a fairly moral dude. And, like, okay, so we rescue him in that mission, and then suddenly we're shooting up an entire town of lawmen. Like, we killed, like, 30 people to go 2 blocks in a town, and he kills some people to get his guns back? And, I mean, at this point, like, okay, I busted him out of jail, I'm loyal to Dutch, and as soon as he did that, I'm like, okay, Arthur would just shoot this guy right now. He would just shoot this guy and say, sorry, Dutch, tried to break him out, the law got to him. You know, like, there comes a point where Arthur's morals and the type of character he is, especially with the way I was put, but I think even if you were playing really lawless, would say, this guy's trouble. He's better dead. But this is not the worst example. Andrew, were you alive in the early 2000s? Say mid-2000s?
I certainly was.
Do you happen to remember a game called Grand Theft Auto San Andreas? Do you remember who your primary antagonist in that was?
Vaguely?
Officer Tenpenny, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson.
That's right.
So this is a game where you literally are a gangbanger who, you know, on the way to go to the gym and then go buy a pizza slice, you might kill 10 people and shoot 50 cops, but your primary problem is a cop who says, hey man, you do anything? Frame you for killing a cop. And it's like, I think they're aware I have an issue with the police. Like, it's creating these characters that are just like borderline nonsense. And I remember when I played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, it was like, I love the game. And it is, in my opinion, probably the best Grand Theft Auto game. I know the modern versions, 5s and stuff are great, but like GTA San Andreas clicked with me. I loved it. But the one fault I had with that game was this character that, like, I'm like, why don't I shoot him? Why don't I shoot him right now? I killed 3 cops on the way here. Not on purpose, but, you know, when you're driving, you know, and you got one of those, like, shitty cars, you actually run over some people and shit happens. But this, like, one cop is, like, the whole game got you under his thumb. I think it sort of eases off when you go to San Fierro, but still, like, it's ridiculous when games have characters like that. Have you ever experienced this, Andrew? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, of course. I'd like to almost like I had like kind of like an honorable mention. I almost like to put like a spin on yours, where it's like you don't like the character that can never die. Essentially, they're like almost untouchable. They're like invincible.
Yeah.
One thing I hate though is like when, like, say you're playing a game and like during the game you're getting shot like a million times. Like you have a health bar, you get shot like a million times, and it's fine. Like you have a health bar, like whatever, you regain your health, and or you know you get a health pack and whatever. And then I hate the cutscene bullets where it's like your character gets shot by a bullet in a cutscene and then like in his leg or something, and then all of a sudden it's like a slow-mo shot of it like going through his leg, and he like falls over and he's like clutching his leg and he like can't move, and then like the boss is like over top of him with like a gun being like, I finally got you here. It's like, dude, I got shot in the neck like 19 times on the way here. I slapped like a fucking band-aid on it and kept going. It was fine.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That's sort of the mechanical version of the concept. It's very like, I mean, I understand video games aren't meant to be real, but there does come a point where it's like, you know, I've literally just gone through this. I'm thinking like a Max Payne or something, where like I've had a stadium worth of people shooting at me of these drug cartel guys, and then like one guy comes up and just shoots me in the shoulder. I'm like, oh, I'm out. Yeah. That was the bullet that did it, not the 300 before, but that one. Oh.
Or like also, it's like on the way to the boss, I'm like just like shooting up the place. I've killed like 19 of his henchmen, like just going nuts, like executing people. People's faces are getting blown off. I get to the boss and I'm like, you're a bad man. You've murdered people. You murdered like 3 people, and like on the way to him, I just like murdered like an entire army of his goons who probably all had families.
Yeah, I think this all stretches back to the concept of as soon as somebody is in your way in a video game, they're fair game. Even if they're like, wait, my name's Pete. I've got a like wife and kids. I'm just doing the security. Like I got hired, but you know, yeah, you're 100% right. It's video games are fine when they let you kill people, but just like stop trying to have your cake and eat it too, and being like, oh, we've got this great story beat where, you know, like he realizes the other guy's a murderer and he's gonna punish for crimes. Meanwhile, you've just killed 300 people.
Yeah, it's like, again, I get like those. That's why these things are honorable mentions for me. Like, kind of like I thought I'd just like throw them in at some point.
Oh, absolutely. No. If you,
but they're like, I get why they exist in like a storytelling standpoint. Like, I fully get it, and that's why I'm not like, I hate this game, burn it. I'm never playing it again if one of these things happens. But
yeah. Last thing I'll say on this subject is it feels like the game designer and the story writing team sort of talked a bit, but like never really sat down and said, okay, here's what I'm going for with what I'm doing. How does that work with what you're planning? Oh, okay. So I'm going to have to change a few things here. But yeah. So that's my first trope I think has got to go. It's like just there's money in video games. You can hire better writers. Do something about this. Like just don't, it takes me right out when this happens. Oh, I'm so mad. I can feel my tension just rising. Oh, I'm going to need a moment. And during that moment, Andrew, would you like to discuss your second trope you dislike?
Yeah, another trope that really bugs me, and I think this one probably bugs me personally more, just the way I play games. Like, I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to games. Like, I'm not really a hoarder in real life, is a weird thing. But, like, yeah, like in video games, I'm like such a hoarder, like when it comes to like materials and shit. It's those very super rare materials that you get, a la throwing it out to you in Destiny, maybe like an Ascendant Shard, in Pokemon, like the Master Ball, just something like some material or item that is just so top tier that you never want to use it. And essentially maybe you get one, or like in Pokemon, you always get one Master Ball, which is like a 100% catch rate, except I think in Gen 1, I think it was like a 95% catch rate, which is bullshit. But yeah, so essentially it's like you get like one or like a couple of these items and you essentially never use them. So me personally, like I'm a hoarder. Like I like when it comes to items, I like to have like a nice assortment, whatever. But it's like I'll get to the final boss fight and I'll have just like all these one-off items or whatever that are just like super powerful. And like even in like the final boss fight of the game or like the final level of the game in like an RPG or something, in like you have like a an elixir or something. You only have like a few elixirs that like fully restore your party's HP and MP or whatever, where you're just like you're like in a boss fight. It's literally the last phase. Your party's kind of like all a little bit hurt. There's like one guy, poisoned. Like your
Some guys
spellcaster's
just sleep
MP
there
is
doing that thing where they
yeah,
stand
and
while
you're like,
sleeping.
and you have like 3 elixirs. You're just like, do I use one of these right now? Like, do I? And then it's just like, yes, fucking use one. It's the last fight. What are you holding on to it for? So personally, yeah, I think that's again that's more of like a personal thing where it's like items that are like too good to use, like you almost never want to use them. I just feel like that trope needs to go, or like either make them less powerful or give me more of them. I don't know.
Put them on a recharge, maybe.
Or put them on a recharge, yeah.
Something
like,
you can only use
like
like once per fight or something like that.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. But yeah, that's I think something for me that's bothered me a lot, and I think that's a very personal thing to me. I mean, other people I'm sure can relate, but I don't think that's like a huge thing. Maybe I said it needs to go. Maybe that's a bit too harsh. Maybe it's just like
it needs a timeout. Well, here's a funny thing. You had an honorable mention about my last thing. I actually have kind of an honorable mention about you. You talking about this. It's sort of like this again, kind of like yours was sort of like mine, but
hell
not
yeah,
quite.
Get in there.
It's okay. So you've been playing the game and you just got the Sword of Demon Murder Cool Blood Sword. It does like 1 billion points and it cuts through any armor and it's just the greatest fucking sword. And you're like, yeah, all right, I'm gonna fight this next guy with it. Yeah. Oh, credits. What? I don't get a chance to use this.
I know. I hate that.
It's sort of like what you're talking about. It's like is, but it isn't. Where it's like something you get a really good item, and instead of like being able to get into it, be like, oh, you know what? I've been working a long time, and I finally got this awesome armor, this awesome sword. It's like, oh, here you go, and game is over.
Also,
or even worse, it's like you have to go through. Like I know some JRPGs have done this. I think like one of the Final Fantasies did it, where you can't even really get it until you finish the plot, and then you have to like go back and grind stuff and do like.
Materia. You gotta like grind materia and shit.
Yeah, it's like give me a little time with the awesome item.
Yeah, I'll jump off your thing there.
Please do.
Another thing that gets me in games is like you said, you get like the ultra demonic demon slayer blade. Like it's like on fire. It's like red. It's like it's got jewels on it. It looks fucking badass. And then like you use that for maybe like an hour or two, and then you get to the next town, and then some random inn has like some like random metal sword that does like plus 10 more damage than your like crazy super demon slayer blade that you have to like kill a demigod for.
Or even
like,
worse, it's selling the exact same sword. You found this amazing sword that like tiny little town villagers like, oh yeah, I've got 5 of those. You want it?
Yeah, or like I mean, but even just like it's just like a random metal sword that's like it's like, oh yeah, this random metal sword that the next town over like 12 kilometers that way has like a way better sword made out of metal than this like ruby encrusted demon slaying sword that's on fire. So yeah, so that's always like irked me a little bit.
100%.
Just kind of like from like a storytelling standpoint, I'm like, well, I mean, like I get it from an RPG and like leveling up standpoint. It's like that demon slayer blade can't be the most powerful thing you have because you got it halfway through the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, just like adding to what you said earlier too, games like that's why I love like I'm sure I mentioned this before, but like that's why I love like games as service games, like Division or Destiny, because like what you said, where it's like you will get to the end of the game, and like most games have like a solid end game, but there is a point where it's like, okay, I've done everything in the game, my armor, I got like the most badass weapon, and like there's nothing to do with that weapon. So like I fully get what you're saying. That really annoys me too, where it's like you get the most badass weapon. I remember in Red Dead Revolver, the game, not Red Dead Redemption, Red Dead Revolver for PS2. I remember once you beat the storyline, I don't remember if it was if you beat the storyline or like get all the collectibles or whatever, you get this like giant cannon, like this shoulder mounted cannon that literally shoots a cannonball. But there's literally nothing to do with it. There's like no replayable content. The only replayable content there is like you could potentially get like attacked by bandits. That's literally the only replayable content in that game. So it's like, I think it was once you run it 100%ed the game. So it's like you 100% the game, you get the shoulder mounted cannon, and like literally you shoot, like I was shooting cows with it. Like that's what you do. It's like, cool, I can shoot cows with it. Or like randomly get attacked by like 3 bandits on horseback and then just like obliterate them and then like wait another hour until that happens again.
As soon as you said that, I was like, I'm trying to think of it, but there's something in the like the fog of my memory. I remember playing a game that did so. It's like, congratulations, you finished the game. Here, have this. Arbitrarily going to say a sword. Have this amazing sword. I'm like, well, where the fuck was this 20 minutes ago? I just went through like the worst boss fight I've ever had. What the fuck game was it?
We'll circle back on it. So yeah, it kind of seems like we have some issues with items in games at times, whether they be, too powerful to use, or, you get it and you're not really able to use it. But yeah, so like what would you say is your number two choice for, tropes that G2G?
Well, my number two choice is strictly a technical design choice at this point. Like, it's, I'm gonna reference a game I'm playing right now. I just recently on Epic Store picked up for $0 Battlefront 2. I'm a fan of the EA Battlefront Battlefield games. Not a massive fan, but I do enjoy them. I sort of like the big combat things of them. But on one of the planets, especially this one called Felucia, I think, or something like that. I can't remember the name exactly. It's elements of design in a map where you're like, why can't I go here? I can obviously get up. What? Can I go here? And you like end up jumping out of what turns out to be a wall, and you're like, wait, no, but I should be able to climb up this. Or the dreaded, like, you're just walking along and you're like, oh, I can go for. Wait, there's an invisible wall here to stop me. Maps
so
design should not. I should never be able to. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I should never look at a place or a route or a surface or what have you and say, oh, I can go over there, and then just find out I can't for a reason that's completely arbitrary. Like, and it's not just necessarily an invisible wall, but it's things like I was saying in this map, it's like your standard alien planet with giant fungal things, trees, growths, etc., and a lot of rocks. And there's a lot of places where you're like, on other maps, the trails are pretty beaten down, so you're like, okay, I go up here if I want to go up on this rise. But here, you're like, walk up to something, you're like, is this it? And you start jumping. So I can get halfway. Oh, no, okay, I gotta go around. I'm sure as you learn a map, it becomes, especially for multiplayer maps, it becomes less of an issue. But I find that too many games I've played over the years have these arbitrary, like, no, you can't go here, and we couldn't really figure out a way to represent that visually. Well, an example that I am also thinking of is Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was basically a province of Cyrodiil that was right in the middle, so it was bordered by land on all sides pretty much. So, you could get to the edge of this province and be like, oh shit, I can go up this hill here, and then it would just say, no, turn back. Like, I feel that games, there should be a better way to design that. And I'm not saying everything has to take place on an island. I'm going to say I don't have the exact solution for this issue, but it is still frustrating, especially for stuff when you're like, okay, the edge of the map, you can kind of accept, okay, this is the edge of the territory, this is the edge of the city, this is the edge of whatever. Cool, I understand I'm not supposed to go any further, fine, I'll turn around. That's sort of like, it's annoying, but whatever. But when you come to like something where you're obviously like, I should be able to climb up this. This is literally like, if I was in this game in the real world, I would just walk up this. This is not a steep, but apparently I can. So yeah, so my number two gripe, if you will, is map design where you visually make it seem like I can go somewhere, but I can't. What? Stop doing that?
Yeah. It's even I don't hate it. I was gonna say I hate bringing it back to Destiny. I love bringing it back to Destiny.
It's something we're all experienced with. So.
Destiny has like the kill screen where it's like turn around 5, 4, like things like that. Like the invisible walls. Like you look at games like Breath of the Wild or like Red Dead Redemption 2 for the most part, where those games, it's like if you can't go somewhere, like if you can see something, you can go there. Mm-hmm. It's like whenever you're boxed in, it's always by like a mountain face or something where it's like a cliff face or like something. It's so annoying when it's just like. A kill screen is one thing, but like just like an invisible wall, it's just so annoying. You just like bump into it like doof, doof. It's just like, oh my god, like
I don't know
this is
about
so
you,
lazy.
But when I encounter something like that, I'm always like, wait, is this a mistake? Am I supposed to be able? And then like it's not like I go, oh, invisible wall. I'm always like, oh, am I doing this wrong? I'm supposed to jump over here. Like I still waste time sometimes going. No, I'm not gonna say every time, but often going like, is this right? I can't. Oh, you sure? Oh, okay.
And then the worst is, okay, so say there's like an invisible wall, and then you like come up to an invisible wall at a couple different points in the game, and you're like, oh, okay, like this is a thing that they use in this game. And then like later in the game, there'll be like an area where it's like there'll be like a piece of invisible wall or something, but like you can like kind of like, I don't know, go around it and like find like a little kind of like secret collectible. It's like, no, you already established like invisible walls are impenetrable, but then like later in the game, it's like beside an invisible wall, or like where you think there would be an invisible wall, it's like they would have rewarded you for checking, but it's like, no, we've already established this.
You've punished me for the last bunch of hours checking these invisible walls. I'm not going to start now on level 8 where it turns out there's a gun. No, you're 100% right on that.
Yeah, so that always annoyed me where it's like, like a game should reward you for exploration, not like dissuade you for it. Where
100%.
it's like no, you can't go here, no, you can't go here, no, you can't go here. Oh, but if you kind of like shimmy over here, you can kind of get in here, and then boom, oh, there's this like little mini cave with like a treasure chest or something in it. It's like no, like make it more obvious, or don't have this whole invisible wall mechanic. It's super annoying. In things like multiplayer maps, I can kind of understand it more. Like I know you mentioned a multiplayer game, so it's like it is to prevent people, like you kind of like close off the space so people can't kind of like glitch into like weird little areas and then just like snipe people.
Yeah.
So in a multiplayer map, I can 100% understand an invisible wall, but still just make it more of like a natural thing. Like maybe like attach it to like a cliffside or something. You know what I mean? So that's, I feel like that is one aspect where they can get away with it a little bit more, just to make it a little more easy for everybody. So you don't have these kind of like people like sneaking into little crevasses and stuff, little alcoves,
Nooks and
that
crannies,
sort of thing.
if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I will say, now it's my turn to go. We often talk about Destiny. Destiny's multiplayer maps are pretty good because they're the game zone is blatant, and it's visual. It's either like a steep drop off or a giant wall. Like you never really find on the edge of those maps. It's not it's clear where you're supposed to be, or whether you can go further in this direction. Yeah, so I'll give a shout out to Destiny on that. It's yeah. Just long story short, there are many visual cues and techniques to say don't go this way. So use them, and also, as Andrew pointed out, I hadn't even really thought about it, but that's a good point. Be consistent. Don't like say, oh, you can't go this way because there's a red X here all the time, but then the 8th red X, it's actually you should have gone that way to get like money or whatever. It's dumb. Angry again. Now I need more time to like simmer down. Andrew,
we're just getting riled up here.
Just,
Jeez, I'm about to flip my table.
Except mine was made excellent heavily. I couldn't flip this even if I was strong. Yeah, so that's my second one. Andrew, your third issue with this art form called video games.
Yes, which we have established is art.
Yeah, 100%.
In a previous podcast. I think we were the first three people.
Yeah, I think most people were just like, video games is pure commercialism, but
it's
then
a toy, and we're like,
no,
I think it has artistic merit. I think it has artistic
take
merit.
That stance. We're bold. We're visionaries, futurists, if you will.
Yeah, we should start a podcast. So my third choice, this isn't like I would say that my first most annoyed thing was the NPC escort mission, but I wouldn't say that like I saved my like most hated thing for last. So I'd say this is probably like almost an honorable mention. I had a bunch of honorable mentions, and I've kind of knocked them off as we talked. But so this one,
that's what we're here for. We're talking about this stuff.
Yeah. So this one was kind of like also an honorable mention, but anyway, so the use of backtracking in a game, or like essentially just like gating progress by you having to go back and do shit. However you want to put that. For instance, I didn't play it all the way through. I only played like the demo, like the beta of Anthem. But I know with Anthem, there's a point where there's like you get to about like 2/3 through the storyline, and then there's like a door that is locked, and then to like unlock the door, you need to like go like 50 of it, like go kill 50 of this enemy type, like collect like 50 of this resource, like do like 3 of these missions, and it's just like such a lazy way to design a game. And then like again, like Destiny is so guilty of that. I mean, lately they've kind of like relegated it to like side quests and not so much like the main storyline, even though there is still some of that. Also, another game that
Can I interject for a second? I would actually, sorry, I'm being a complete jerk interjecting, but this last Destiny expansion had a hell of a lot of backtracking in it.
It had a whole lot of physical backtracking. It was like, go here. It was like, okay, go to this place far up north. Oh, by the way, they are adding another landing point to Europa. Thank goodness.
Wonderful.
So that'll be with this season.
It's by the stranger.
Exactly. That was another thing in the new Destiny expansion where it's like, boom, go all the way to like the north of this map. All right, like now fast travel back to this NPC. And then go all the way over here where you have to like ride your Sparrow for 5 minutes. Okay, now go back and talk to this NPC. So that was annoying. Also, another one, for instance, is in Metal Gear Solid 1 for the PS1. There's a point where you have this key card. And it is kind of like a cool mechanic where, so this, you need like this key, you need 3 different key cards in this game. And then you're thinking like, I got 1 key card, what do I do? Essentially, this key card is 3 different key cards. So what you have to do is like, it's affected by temperature. So you have the key card, you like put it in, okay, boom, there's one of three. So it's affected by temperature. So you have to like backtrack to a point in the game. You just fucking run back for like all through like the whole game. Because like Metal Gear Solid 1 and to a
Do
lesser
enemies
extent 2.
respawn when you run back?
Yeah, there's
Ugh.
like they're respawned. It's not that they're respawned. It's like I think there's like new enemies there. So anyway, so you do have to like sneak back and whatever. But essentially, like it is kind of like you're like in a building, then there's like a linear path, and then you're like in like a next kind of area, then there's like a linear path. So it's kind of like there is a linear path to travel back. So like these cards are affected by temperature. You have to go to this one area that's like super hot. You stand there for like I don't know 3 minutes while the quote heat is affecting the card, and then you got to like book it back. And I think there is a time limit, or the card will revert back to its old state. So you make it hot, run back, stick it in the machine. Okay, 2 or 3. Then you have to go run back all the way again to this other area that's even farther away. That's almost at the beginning of the game. Make the thing cold. Stand there for 3 minutes. Book it back to the thing. Put the key card in. And boom. Okay, there you go. There's your 3 key cards. So that's like that in my mind is like the ultimate like backtracking annoyance. Like again, there was like at least there was like a story point reason for it. Like at least they like were like, okay, cool, like this key card is like heat activated. So at least it wasn't just like an anthem where they're like, this door is locked. Go kill like 300 of this enemy type or whatever it was. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it was like like an hour or two of work of just like even maybe even more of just like going around grinding shit. But anyway, yeah. So that's probably like my one of my gripes with like one of my tropes that needs to go. What do you think about the whole
Oh,
backtracking maybe artificially inflating a game's playtime?
as soon as you said it, I had to reach for my nitroglycerin pills. I was so angry.
This guy's blood pressure is
Oh,
spiking.
through the roof. It's 920/6. I don't know blood pressure numbers.
I think you're dead.
Oh, really? This is how I find out. I thought it was this light that I've constantly have, like, people I saying, come to us, and it just follows me around all the time. It might be just something to do with the flashlight. I don't know. But the number of games I've played which have had, like, okay, go over here, talk to this person. No, go over here, talk to this person. No, go back and talk to the person you first talked to. Cool. What? Like, that sort of, like, needless travel over the same area, especially when it's, like, something where, like, you've explored a region, then you're going on, it's like, oh, you know what? This next quest is you just going back to, like, where you've been, like, a whole bunch before. Just go talk to that guy in that place you were, that guy in that tower, that guy in that town, it's... No, I 100% don't like backtracking, because it's just filler. It's not...
Such filler.
It doesn't do anything. Even if they kind of justify it by the plot, and many do, it's just, like, you always get this impression of, like, okay. I'm a guy who doesn't like to fast travel in games. I like to sort of generally...
Really?
Oh yeah. What? I when I'm playing like a big open map, like I said, I'm playing the Assassin's Creed right now. I only fast travel when I've got to pass over a vast area that I've cleared out. But I don't go like, okay, where's my next region? Fast travel there. I go kind of near it and then like to travel it. And I love exploring maps, so I like to travel. But
If you start though, I 100% fast travel. Like I can't be asked to if I have to like go across the fucking map to go talk to somebody. Like no, I'm gonna go.
Well, I mean, if it's that far, I'll fast travel. But generally speaking, I try to avoid it, and especially in something like the Elder Scrolls games, or like the Fallout games, where once you've gone from point A to B, and let's say you got to go back to point A, there might be some new monsters have respawned or something. Like there might be something going on between. If it's pretty empty area, I'm probably gonna fast travel, but I try to avoid it as much as I can. But yeah, like the number of times that when I get one of these like backtrack, I'm just like, all right, well I'm gonna fast travel because this is annoying. Like instead of just marching back and it's so annoying. Like just every time, it's terrible.
The like just kind of like adding to what you said, it was just another honorable mention that I had was just like the whole fetch quest thing. Like I mean. I didn't include it in my list, but you talked about like talking to this person, Like I feel like fetch quests have just been like I feel like now fetch quests are just kind of part of a game, so it's like it's such a broad term that you can't get rid of it, I guess. But like just the whole like you talk to a guy and he's like, oh man, like I would really love a magnifying glass, and then you just like gotta remember that, and then just like later on I don't know, you just like come across a magnifying glass, you're like, oh yeah, that guy in some town wanted some magnifying glass. Or like where like the thing is like, go get me a magnifying glass, and you have to like go get him one. It's just like some stupid mission, you bring it back to him and he's like, thank you, here's like 500 gold, and you're like, sweet, I have like 3 million. Okay, cool.
Yeah, next
map marker.
Yeah, I think RPGs are one of the worst ones for that. And I think the earliest game, it must have been earlier than this, but I remember like in the first time WoW came out, it started the whole, hey, I got a mission for you. Okay, what's the mission, buddy? Am I gonna go kill a guy? Do you know, go find me 6 jerkbeak feathers. And so you go find a nest of jerkbeaks and you kill 8 of them, but only 1 drop, maybe 2.
I was just about to say, then there's an RNG element where
yeah,
only
and you're
some
just
of them
like,
drop
oh,
in.
just this is why are you making? I don't mind grinding things when there's an immediate reward, but when it's really just like essentially what you're looking for are 6 keys to get to the next step of something, it's just annoying.
Okay, that is just a trope that annoys me in and of itself that I didn't even think of. The whole like when you have to collect something, it's like you said, where it's like like you need to collect like 5 of these things from this enemy, and they only have like a small
feathers. They were jerkbeak feathers.
Jerkbeak feathers, and they like the jerkbeaks. What are they called?
Jerks.
Yeah,
Jerkatus
so like
avium is their Latin name.
yeah, and they only have like a I don't know 8% chance of
Yeah.
dropping the thing you need, so you're just grinding them out. At least like just make it instead of making an RNG thing where it's like you get a chance to get one and you need 5, just make it 100 and they have 100% chance of dropping it. Like why make it the stupid RNG element that like could potentially inflate the time way more? And just make it a guaranteed drop and just make me get more.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
No. I was done.
And the worst part is it doesn't. If I'm collecting 100, if I have to kill 100 jerkbeaks for 100 feathers, and I know each one's going to drop a feather, feels like progress. When you're shooting things, and you're sitting there, you're like, come on, just drop another one. It feels like the game is stalling out. Like it almost feels like the game's like,
is it dropping? Are these dropping? Has it glitched?
And you're like, oh, what's going on? Why is this taking so long? Like this isn't progress. Like I hate to say it, but I am a product of the MTV generation. Yeah, that's right. I'm old. And we were the first generation that's like loves that media. Give it to us fast. So just give us a slow drip of progression where it's like every jerkbeak drops a feather, so you have 1 feather for every jerkbeak you killed, and you know you have to kill 30 of them. Not go like you're probably gonna end up killing like 30 to 40 and to get your 6 feathers. It's dumb.
I'd rather kill 40 and know that I'm increasing it by 1 every time than increasing it 30 than having good RNG. 100%.
100%.
Anyway, so I guess that kind of brings us to your final choice, my dude.
What was
your last choice?
It's almost like we don't even have to segue because it's basically what you were talking about. And except it's not multiplayer, it's single player based. And what it is the bloat. With single player games lately, things like Assassin's Creed, Cyberpunk 2077, these
Shadow
are like
of Mordor, that sort of
Shadow
thing.
Mordor, yeah. And the Mass Effect Andromeda was really bad for this. And what this is bloat is basically where you have a story, but you just add all this extra stuff to it that doesn't need to be there, but so that anybody, and I hate to say it, I'm a completionist who never completes games. It's kind of a hypocritical enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a, I don't know, slightly overweight 44-year-old man's body. And it's like, why do you, I have to, like, every checkpoint, every spot on the map, I'm like, well, I gotta take care of this. I gotta clear the map. I gotta think, this is just something that's always been there for me when I've had any game that had a map with little icons on it. And 9 times out of 10, especially in Mass Effect Andromeda, I hate to say this, by the way, the next few minutes, a lot of Mass Effect Andromeda ripping. It's like, you go there, okay, what am I doing? Oh, go to these 3 points. Cool. What's over here? I gotta collect 6 ice crystals from these guys. Or I gotta bring supplies to these 3 rebels over here. You know, it's like, it's so bloated. And also in that game, like, there are like 9 or 7 or 8 planets you have to go to before you can get to the end. And it's like, literally, there's like 2 desert planets. There's 2 kind of jungly, vague, like, yeah, there's 1 jungle planet. It's just so like, it's like these people, when they're designing a single player game, say, if you don't spend 80 hours playing my game, you're not going to be satisfied. And maybe that's to answer some kind of like survey or metric they found. Maybe that's a legitimate response to a demand in the marketplace for longer playing single player games. But I'll tell you right now.
No, it's to sell you XP boosters. That's why.
Well, I mean, that's for That is true for the Assassin's Creed series. It was funny they didn't have them at first, but they're there now, and I just look at them like
They are.
the thing is though. I think we've talked about this.
It's because
before.
they don't have them in there on launch because then everybody reviews it without the XP boosters
Yeah, and then
in there.
like we
And then they add them later, and all the reviews are already
hey
gone
lazy
out.
bastards, give us $20 and you can get twice XP twice as fast. And for me actually, I think those things are anathema. I mean, like I think we've talked about this. I love the progression part, so I'm like, I actually one of the things I'll say about Assassin's Creed, I'm enjoying it, but it looks like the top level will be like 250 or 300, and I'm like a level 130 right now. And I gotta say, I've gotten almost all the skills I want. I'm like, it has a list, it has a map where you can sort of see. I know it sounds weird to describe the skill tree as a map, but that's what it is. And you can see like the big skills, and I'm like, I guess I could carry 2 heavy weapons at the same time. What the fuck is that? I don't care. But like it's and Ubisoft games are also like this, where they just like are constantly, and it's never. You can have a long game, but give me something interesting every time. What the Ubisoft games do, and what Mass Effect Andromeda does, and a lot of other games as well, Cyberpunk 2077, is after a while it becomes a blur. Like, they don't become memorable moments. Even the things where they have little curated stories for, you're busting into this place to rescue somebody who's being held by a gang of whatever, or, this little person over here wants you to jump into a well to find the lost treasure that he's looking for his dad. You know, like, those stories are interesting, but after you've done 30 of them, like, they just become a blur. And I find when I'm finishing these longer games, I just start getting to like I don't remember the main plot, but the actual memorable moments are few and far between. Now, I'd like to go back to talk to my favorite game of all time, Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 you can finish, even if you're completing everything, in like 30 to 40 hours, maybe 50 if you're real, just sort of like taking your time, checking everything out, and not just like doing stuff, but like looking at sites and such. Oh, and DLC would also be in addition to that time. But this, within those 30 to 50 hours, is just crisp storytelling. There's always something new, and every side quest is a new thing. And you spend a lot of time scanning planets. That's kind of dull. But when you find a planet that has something for you to land and investigate, it's something different. It's a new, like, they're very memorable, short little stories. And the side quests all have a purpose. They're not just a busyness. They're like, you want to get your characters loyal. It helps you with the end final mission. And it's just such a great game. It shows that you can make a game whose, even if you're just like powering through the main story, is about 25 to 35 hours to ensure your crew survives at the end. And it's great. You know, it's like I've replayed Mass Effect more times than I have spent, like, definitely I've played each game more than 100 hours. Like, absolutely. Like, I've done 2 or 3 or 4 full cycles of the trilogy. Remaster coming out soon. I'll be buying that. But yeah, sorry, I'm getting off on a bit of a rant here. Maybe it's a coffee jag, but long story short, video games for the single player, you don't need to make... You can't look at it and go like, how many hours does this take to complete? 80. It's got to be closer to 100. It's like, no, man, just ignore the length of a game. I've played... like Half-Life 2, which came out in 2004, you can finish that game in a day. If you start, about 10 hours later, you can be at the end of it in the Citadel. Spoiler alert for a 17-year-old game. But it was great, and it's super memorable. Like, every part of that game I have burned in my brain because it's a really memorable story. And I've replayed that game like 7 or 8 times, absolutely, over the last 2 decades. And yeah, I think brevity is the soul of wit, is the sign of wit or whatever. And I realized the hypocrisy of me for about like 10 minutes on this. I understand that I am a hypocrite here on this, but it just makes me so bad. God, blood pressure is now 7 over 3 cherries? What the hell?
So I think that problem, it almost like encapsulates every other gripe we have.
Yep.
Because you take a game that, you know, could have been whatever, a 40-hour game that is, like you said, like action packed, it's got all these great beats, but then somebody in head office is like, okay, this isn't a 40-hour game, this got to be an 80-hour game or a 60-hour game. We gotta pad that shit out. So then what happens is you start having, you know, fetch quests like we talked about. You start having escort missions. You start having all these like filler missions that are just like padding out the storyline, padding out the playtime. And then what you see a lot of times now, like we've mentioned in games like, you know, some of the Assassin's Creed games, Shadows of Mordor was notorious for it, where you hit this wall about 2/3 through the game. And this, again, this kind of, we talk about like oh, you can't progress unless you do these certain instances, like these certain things, like you grind out in Anthem. It's like the same thing. It's like in these games where it's like you can't progress unless you like grind out all these like little missions that like they're like super tedious missions that nobody really wants to do. And oh, lo and behold, in the marketplace, there's an XP booster where for
Mm-hmm.
9.99, instead of doing like, you know, 100 of these shitty little side quests, or like these little like, oh, you have to like assassinate all these different things for like XP, because there's no other way to earn XP at this point. It's like you have to grind out the same shitty type of missions. You, instead of doing like 100 of them, it's like, oh, you only got to do 30 of them with like the XP booster on. Like you pay 9.99, you're getting the XP booster. It's like a, you know, a times 3 multiplier for XP, or times 5, whatever. And you can like grease through the kind of grindy, superfluous content that they added only to, you know, pad the game time and, you know, sell you an XP booster. So, as I said, so it kind of like encapsulates all the problems that we've, well, not all the problems, but a lot of the problems we talked about, where it's like these kind of like poor game design decisions just to incorporate it, just to like pad a game. And it's like, yeah, you're padding the game for those reasons that I mentioned. A game that I remember that I kind of felt like had this problem was, I'm sure I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but Red Dead Redemption 2, where you part of about 2/3 of the way through the game, or maybe a little bit less, maybe about halfway. Actually, it's about 2/3. Anyway, you go to this place called Guarna, which is essentially Cuba, and you do this like kind of like little side mission with some like revolutionaries there. And when you come back to the main play area that you left to go to Cuba, it feels like there's like a whole section that they added there that was just like to pad out. Like there was like a lot of kind of like filler missions and like unmemorable missions, like you said, they become a blur. So Red Dead has these really great kind of like set piece missions where, you know, you're in a trolley, you're in a hot air balloon, you're like storming a fort, whatever. And like there's these like really great moments, these really great set piece moments that are like set pieces. And then like the last kind of third of the game before it like kind of like builds up into the last chapter, which again, it's all worth it, like this kind of filler that you have to go through, because the last kind of section, the last chapter of the game, where you're finishing the game, tying up all like the, you know, the storylines and whatever, is so strong that it is worth it to push through all that quote filler. But it still exists, where it's like if you kind of just, if they took out a bunch of that, and like once you got back from Guarna, you kind of started winding down the storyline. I think first of all, I think a lot of more people would have finished the game, because I've talked to a lot of people, and they've kind of like, once they come back to what's the area in Red Dead?
Oh, well, I know there's regions like West Elizabeth,
But is there like a
Lemoyne
whole
is.
map? Well, I guess it's America, right?
Yeah, Lemoyne
Yeah.
is supposed to be Louisiana. West Elizabeth is like Wyoming
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I don't know.
So yeah, so
don't
it's
know what the
America.
region's called.
So yeah, so once you come back to America, whatever you want to call it, it's definitely just kind of, it loses forward momentum for a solid, I don't know, like 10, 15, 20 hours, until it like finally, okay, cool, I'm in like the last chapter where it's like you're doing all like the final missions and shit.
One day I'll finish that game. One day. You know what I'm
Oh,
saving that for? I'm saving it for the retirement home when I've just like got nothing to do all day. And I'm just like, oh, my kids don't visit me because I don't have kids. Oh, I'll play
but
some
wait,
Red
you'll,
Dead.
you'll have dementia, so you won't remember that you don't have kids, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Hell yeah.
Wow, this was a chilling vision of things to come for me. Yeah. So there we have had it. I guess this has been a good little talk about the things in video games that we don't like, and there are many more, so this may become a repeating feature when we.
This
I'm
podcast
sure.
is like, it's just like two white guys pissed off about video games.
We're, yes, as I've said before, we're two white guys with beards, severely underrepresented video game.
Why won't anyone listen to what we have to say?
Oh god, we're terrible. But you know what? I've been looking at my blood pressure. It's been high, and I think now it's just like, it's literally like a Chinese cuneiform over like just, you know, the triangle with the all-seeing eye in the American dollar bill. This
Illuminati?
is the weirdest. Yeah, this is the weirdest machine. I really probably shouldn't have it hooked up to me and my cell phone and my internet. But what is a cure for blood pressure? Giving someone a gift is, which introduces.
Oh, you don't say.
I do say. It's almost like we talked about this. Ah, yes. So I'm going to ease my blood pressure with, and hopefully Andrew's as well, by forcing him to give me a gift. With this new little segment that we've come up with, where.
Does it have a name? Do we have a name for it?
Oh God, you know what? It's funny. It's
We
funny you
should
should
have had a
say
name.
that. I thought of. I couldn't come up with a name for it. It was like the Steam gifting, re-gifting on Steam. Gabe Newell is a communist. I don't know. But anyway, so what it is Andrew and I have had a challenge of finding a game under $10 or around about $10.
Or around $10.
Around $10.
We're not sticklers.
We're not sticklers, no. $10 American, probably. To find a game for the other person. So I found a game
on Steam.
On Steam, yes, sorry, on Steam. Go to Hell Epic unless you want to give us money.
Well, I mean, I guess you could do Epic, but on PC is what we're trying to say.
Well, yeah, on PC, and I hate to say it right now as it stands, Steam is probably the best library for very cheap, like, obscure games and things like that. Yeah. And so we decided to essentially choose a game each, and I haven't told Andrew what I've gotten him, and he hasn't told me what he's gotten me, right? Right? Him?
Correct.
Him? Yeah, okay, good. Yes, I know semantics. I don't even
You put the Sam in semantics.
Yes, I do. It's right afterwards. Semantic Sam. So I've gotten Andrew a game, and he's gotten me a game, and we are now about to reveal the game.
Well, first,
Whoa, sorry. Whoa, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well, first you should say what we, plan to do with the games before
of course.
We reveal them.
So what we're going to do is, the challenge is this. The other person has to play the game for 10 hours or until they complete it. And some games that may be sort of murky about when you've definitely completed, like if it's a simple puzzle game or whatever, maybe like we're not hard and fast on the time, but basically until you finish, you've gotten a good sample of it, or you've completed the game, or you've played it long enough that you're like, I know what this is. 10 hours is an arbitrary number that we may not even get close, or we may massively exceed depending on the games.
Exactly. And then, so then we're going to, in the next episode, do, I guess, like a little review or talk about the games we got each other. Exactly. So it's going to, you're going to give your recommendation. I guess really, as of now, I mean, I think the parameters will change. But as of now, pretty much our only parameters were around $10 and, like, don't make it, like, a AAA game. Like, don't get the other guy fucking, like, Star Wars Jedi Academy or like Dishonored because it's on sale.
I looked at Star Wars Jedi Academy. It was $10.
I know, so did I.
I was like, it does like Star Wars.
It is $10 currently.
What do you think about Dark Forces? Would that have been okay? I don't
know. No AAA games. I mean, with like a kind of more slant on, I guess, like indie games.
Well, at some point, I'm sure we could do it. Okay, cheap AAA game for each other.
Oh, for sure. But that's why I said
we wanted to keep it indie or relatively small, unknown games. Who should go first? Should I give to you? You to me? What do you think is the best way to do this?
Gentlemen first.
All right. So, the game I am going to buy you, Andrew Lanza, is called It is a platformer, and its title literally is capital R, capital R, capital R, capital R. I'm not kidding. That's really what it is. And the funny thing is I was looking at this game. So it's a platform game. And when I looked at like people, like the whole, like Steam has a thing where it says, oh, this is kind of like these games. The two games it says it was kind of like Castle Crashers and Cuphead. I'm like, okay, this is. I don't know if it is. It might be crazy. It might not work. I can tell you a little about the game. I have it open now. About this game. This game takes place in the year 3018. After waking up from a cryogenic freeze, the super soldier Rabbit, with a capital R, finds himself in a dangerous world full of dangers and deadly traps. A dangerous world full of dangers. That doesn't feel like that's. I feel like there's something wrong with that grammatically, but I'm too dumb to know what. Learn the secret.
You just need to learn copy, bro.
Yeah, I should go be a copy editor, or I should just drink more copy. Learn the secret origin of the hero. Explore the world of the game, which is just one sentence. There's no punctuation between those, so there should have been at least a comma somewhere there. And then comma. Fight with alien opponents and dangerous robots. And I'm going through the screenshots here, and I didn't notice this till literally right now. At one point, one of them I kind of recognize as a tribal thing, but I swear, where is it? It was one of these. Oh yeah, there is one where it looks like you have you ever seen Monsters, Inc.?
Yes.
Do you remember, the Billy Crystal monster, I can't remember what he's called.
Mike? No, not Mike. Yeah, Mike. Right? Mike was
it looks like he's in a cage.
Yeah, and then Sully's the other one. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's black and white, which I think would be... I know you're going through Cuphead recently, so I'm like, let's get him the exact opposite of that. Yeah, so I will add this to my
cool
cart and send it your way. Might be great, might be awful. We'll find out next time.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. You are a kind, giving man.
Well, it's lowered my blood pressure to a flat line and a beat that I've muted.
So what I did is I went to Google and I searched for best Steam games
I should have
under
done that.
$10, and I went
Smart
through
of
it.
me.
So I went through and like there's like a bunch of Reddit threads, and there's like a website also that like I guess has like it's like an aggregator of all the ratings and shit. So I use that, and there are like a bunch of like AAA games, like as I said, like Dishonored, Jedi Academy, like Battlefront 2, a
Mhm.
bunch of games for like 9.99 and shit. Where I'm like, obviously I'm not gonna get those, and there was a bunch of cool ones where I'm like, ooh, this looks really cool. Not only for Sam but for myself. There's this one really cool platformer called Lisa that I didn't choose it for you because it's a platformer, but I almost got it. It looked really fucking cool. Really like the art style and stuff like that. But so what I went with was a game that I've heard a lot about. I've always wanted to play it, and this will be a good excuse because
Mhm.
this will let me know if you like it. I will let you know that it got a 10 out of 10 on IGN. But a game called Undertale. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of this, and I have wanted to play it. This is great
Sweet.
news. This is great
Sweet.
news. I came out on top, listeners. I mean, it wasn't a competition.
I haven't bought it yet, so
Ah,
let's check.
oh, I don't know. Undertale, cool.
I'm getting you fucking Vice Project Doom. So this one is a bit of in a way, a bit of a dig at you and Boyan.
Oh,
For last episode talking shit about 8-bit art. So
wait,
this
this is
game,
the one with like super realistic, photorealistic 3D graphics, right? Undertale, renowned for its chilling, like, looks like you're looking in a mirror kind of business, right?
nope, it's 8-bit.
Uh oh.
So it's this really cool. I've always wanted to play it, as I said. So I've heard some good things about it. And I know a little bit about it. But essentially, it's this kind of like throwback Nintendo style. As I said, it's 8-bit. And it's like a turn-based RPG kind of, but the battle mechanic is like, do you know what a bullet hell game is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like essentially the way you do attacks is like you do these like little mini bullet hell like mini games, but it's an RPG. So
Hmm.
it's like you that's how you do attacks. Like I don't know, and it has a really cool art style. The music's really cool from what I've seen, and the really like the kind of big mechanic is the game is you can beat the game without injuring anybody. Like you can play the whole game without injuring
I love that.
another enemy
I
the
love
whole
the
game.
pacifist. What you call it? I don't always do it and hardly ever do, but I'll try that. I'm gonna try that for you, Andrew.
Well, it's cool if you have the option at least. It's
Yeah.
like you don't have to kill everything. So from what I've seen, I just know it's like you're like a kid and you go to this like underworld and there's these like monsters and you have to like go through and escape. I hear it's like really funny, really sweet. I hear the writing's really good. I hear the storyline's really good. So I thought, you know what? I could find some shitty shovelware game for like 249 and force Sam to play it. But you know what? I'll hook the guy up with something nice.
I'm gonna say right now, I think looks good, and it looks like it's part of a bundle, so I don't think it's just nothing that ever
Oh no no
existed.
no no! I wasn't digging. I wasn't digging on you
Oh
at all.
wow.
On your choice.
Oh
Just
no,
for
I
the
was saying
record.
to the listeners, I'm not cheap or didn't just get lazy and hit the R's and go like, ah man, Star Trek's on.
Your cat just hit your keyboard and it was just like
It's just
R
four
R R
R's. I'm like
enter
4 R's. That's not a game. Oh shit,
enter.
it is a
Oh,
game. All right,
perfect.
oh, cool. All right, thanks, Kat. Yeah, so that's great. So I think what'll happen next time is we will review the games. We'll see how much of a review we can get. Maybe we throw in a little sort of small topic either at the top or bottom to pad it, or maybe the whole hour is us talking Undertale
Yeah,
and
we'll have to, I guess, see how much we can say about the games.
yeah,
But I kind of assume it probably wouldn't be a full episode, kind of like
yeah.
what we're doing now, where we're like kind of like tack it on at the end. But that's to be
I
seen.
feel like it'll be like
TBD.
a half thing. Like we do
Yeah, yeah.
half an hour about that and the other half hour about whatever else is the current topic of the day. Like
Who knows how
um
2021 is going? It'll be like fucking Gabe Newell buys Apple or something like that.
Gabe Newell stabs people. He's got all those knives and he finally just
Storms
he
the
went
Gabe Newell
crazy.
storms the Capitol.
Someone's like, "Hey, Gabe, Half-Life 3, when's that come? Oh god!" Okay, now that we've accused a very rich man of potentially murdering people, I think our lawyers are probably gonna have something to say at some
That's
point.
fine.
Yeah, that's their job. Well, anyways, so it sounds like we've gone through a whole bunch of topics about things we hate in video games, and we ended up with a mini Christmas, if you will, or Festivus, of giving gifts. It's like the gift of the Magi. I gave you a video game, and then you cut off your keyboard and sold it so that you could afford the game for me, and I cut off my mouse. It's wonderful.
It's truly a glorifying hour of witness.
I praise be. And on that note, I'd like to thank you all for listening to our podcast. Please like, subscribe, and do all that sort of stuff that you do on the internet. I really, really should look this up at one point.
Smash that motherfucking like button.
Yes,
if there is one.
Smash that motherfucking like button. Do you say like or light button? Because I don't want people to turn off their lights. Just, I mean,
Like.
maybe they turn it off and on is how you simply... Okay, if you finish listening to this episode, flick your lights on and off really fast. Just right now. Okay, good job. But again, thank you for listening. I'm Sam Hall, and this is...
Buffs it.
Oh, you were supposed to say you.
Buffs and Nerfs.
With Andrew Lanza. Take care.